Hey people, it's me again, Makeda Valletta. I had to come back and add on to some things that I spoke about in my last video. So if you didn't see the first video I did right before this, it was titled, Can Hispanics Say the N-Word? Okay, make sure you check it out. There's some things I wanted to add. After I did that, I was just looking on YouTube to see people who might have spoken about this. And I came across a video that a Haitian and Jamaican guy in New York did. And I'm going to post, he's a huge following on YouTube. I'm going to post a clip of his video on my Instagram page, and I will post it below on my YouTube page so you can watch his video. He made some good points, and he was basically asking people, why do you feel like you have the right to fight to use the N-word, a word that so many people find offensive? And he was speaking from the perspective of a Black American, and sometimes I have a problem with that. Okay, now it's not all the time that I have a problem with that if you can keep it, but what I find is that sometimes when Black people from other places speak for Black Americans, they can jump back and forth and kind of miss the point sometimes, right? So first of all, you have to put things into perspective. I'm somebody who studies culture, respect culture, and you have to put some things into perspective, okay? So first of all, when people, I was speaking about this in my other video, when people say Blacks and Hispanics, Blacks and Latinos are all one, it's like, well, what does that mean? Okay, because first of all, what Blacks are you talking about? Are you talking about Black Americans? Are you talking about Black people of African descent? Okay, that's number one. Secondly, all Latinos are not Black. Okay, again, Latino stands for a group of people who speak Spanish. Okay, it could be a bunch of ethnic groups under that category. Latinos can be indigenous people. Okay, Latinos can be Africans, okay? You have people who are straight up African in Cuba. I've seen the blackest people I saw in my life, literally darker than the color black, in Cuba and Colombia, okay? You have people who are white as, freaking snow, who are Latinos and speak Spanish, okay? So saying that we're one, that's an incorrect statement. There are Afro-Indigenous Latinos, so you could kind of say that to a degree, okay? To a degree. That's number one. And when you're from New York, again, I'm from New York. I'm from Harlem, Washington Heights. I'm from literally from the border of Harlem and Washington Heights, and the South Bronx is right across the water from me, okay? So there's a lot of Puerto Ricans and Africans in the part of the Bronx is across the water from me. In Harlem, there's a lot of Africans, Black Americans. Washington Heights is a lot of Dominicans, okay? So I'm from the border where Harlem ends and Washington Heights begins. I grew up around Dominicans, and I grew up around Puerto Ricans, and I grew up around Jamaicans, and I grew up around Jews and having all these different friends, okay? And so growing up in New York, it was like this wonderful melting pot, and we all get along. And it wasn't until later on that I started to learn. I remember the first time I was in a sociology class in college, okay? And not in New York, I'm in Delaware. And we had to read an essay about the Caribbean community in Brooklyn and how a lot of them would tell their kids not to mess with Black Americans, that we were lazy and we were ignorant. And I remember telling my dad this. And my dad was like, oh yeah, because I grew up around Pan-Africanists, okay? I grew up around people who were Pan-Africanists, and they were Black scholars and intellectuals. And when I told my dad this, he said, oh yeah, that's been happening. He's like, that's been happening, that's nothing new. And I was like, really? I was surprised by that, because none of my Caribbean friends had that attitude. But when I asked them, that wasn't my experience growing up in New York. But when I asked my Caribbean friends, a lot of them said, oh yeah, my family did say that. I've had a couple of Nigerian boyfriends who told me, one of my friends was one of my exes, his father was Nigerian, his mom was Black American. He told me his father talked shit about Black Americans all the time. And he was married to a Black American and lived here, fled Nigeria and never went back home. So to me, it's like, you have a lot of nerves. You have a lot of nerve leaving Nigeria, coming here, never going back to your country again, staying here and marrying a Black American woman and then talking shit about black Americans. That's unacceptable. Black Americans don't do that. If a black American gets up and moves to Ghana or somewhere in Africa, they definitely ain't doing it with their nose down and get with you and be talking shit. So to me, like, this guy who's speaking, he's speaking for black Americans, which I have an issue with because he is Haitian and Jamaican, okay? He doesn't come from the history here, okay? When you're from Haiti and when you're from Jamaica, you don't know what it's like to be a sheer minority amongst a whole bunch of white people. That wasn't your experience, okay? So the N-word wasn't a part of your roots and your legacy. So you can, to me, speak for black Americans only if you completely fall in line 100%. And even then, I don't know. So, because what this guy was doing was basically chastising white people, because I say that because, again, Latinos can be white as well, okay? But then giving a pass to if you're Puerto Rican or Dominican. And then I'm looking at the comments and I see people in the comments, Dominicans, that are like, yeah, I grew up in Queens around black Americans, and, you know, I always had black friends, and they never checked me about using the word, and that's the stuff that I don't like. I keep hearing people saying, oh, but my friends never said, and especially in New York. Usually when I see people saying this, they're from fucking New York, my city. And I'm like, hold up, I'm a black American who has never liked hearing you say it. And somebody who's Haitian and Jamaican can't override that, because that's not even a black American. Why don't you ask a black American how we feel about hearing y'all say that all the time? And let's come outside of New York, because in New York, Caribbean culture dominates. It dominates so much that as a black American in New York, you feel like you're not special. Because they say to you, oh, what are you, just regular black? I remember so many times in New York, I grew up going to the West Indian Day Parade in Brooklyn. It's a Caribbean Day Parade. It's like carnival. I grew up going to it all my life. And then I remember like being grown and going there, and I didn't have a flag, and people would be like, oh, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm here. I'm from here. I'm American. What do you mean you're from here? Like, where are your parents from? They're like, you're not from an island? I'm like, oh, the island in Manhattan. And they're like, oh, but where are your parents from? And I'm like, America? And they just act like they could not understand the concept of a black American. Like, they never heard of that. Like, if you have to be from the Caribbean or from Africa or somewhere else. And it's just like, dude, how do you not understand what a black American is? Don't you know who Michael Jackson is? Don't you know who Michael Jordan is? You know what I'm saying? Like, we can go on Whitney Houston, Malcolm X. Like, don't you know who those people are? Like, black Americans exist. Get out of New York. A lot of Caribbean people in New York don't travel around America. They just be in that New York bubble. And New York is a bubble, and it's not an authentically American city. And this is why I'm going to also post this on my other page, Makeda Blair Travels, because for someone outside of America who wants to come to America and you want to really experience authentic American culture, cuisine, New York City is not the city to do it in. Okay? Now, the thing is that the same way that he's talking about white people fighting for the right to, and he was making some good points. I'm going to post what he said. It's just I will correct a few things. But he said, why would you fight to use a word that's offending people? And that's how I feel about Hispanics. I don't care if you see yourself as black or you think we're united. If a black American is telling you, I don't want to hear you saying that, it's offensive, why are you fighting for the right? And one thing that this man, one good point he made, he said, people be fighting for the right. Like he brought up what I brought up too, about how when he was growing up, and he grew up in New York City, he's Haitian and Jamaican, and when he grew up in New York City, he learned his Hispanic friends how their families really felt. And same thing with me. I grew up with, Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. If you talk to them about their family, they'll tell you how racist their family is. Especially Dominicans, but Puerto Ricans too. I knew black Puerto Ricans who you would never know they were Puerto Rican, because they weren't yelling Puerto Rico, because they're like, Puerto Ricans treat them fucked up. Because again, like I said in my last video, the race problems and the color problems in Latin America is way worse than it is in the United States. Okay? And the thing is that black Americans have a history of checking people. Black Americans have a history of making sure our history is known. Okay? And that you're not just trying to play us. there was no civil rights movement in a lot of these Caribbean countries and South American countries or anything like that, like how there was here. So that's how they end up becoming invisible. And people don't know how many black people is in Colombia, how many black people is in Peru, or how many black people are in Cuba, or how many, you know what I'm saying? And then the whole issue with Dominicans, like the guy kept talking about, you know, do the Dominicans who are fighting to use the word, do they ever check their family on the hate, you know what I'm saying, that it comes from? Do they ever check their family? And he made an excellent point about that too. But he kept talking about how Dominicans treat Haitians, which is bad. But Dominicans treat black Dominicans bad. It's not just Haitians. If you are a dark-skinned Dominican, you got treated bad, right? And so he brings up a good point. Do you want to fight to use this word, but do you ever fight with your family and to correct the behavior that this comes from? Why you don't say anything to your family? And that's what I said in my last video. I don't respect, like, any white friend I've ever had. They were always ones who stood up. Like, when I first went to my dad's hometown, St. Augustine, Florida, and he told me what it was like to grow up in the segregated South, it brought tears to my eyes. I couldn't imagine that, especially being from, and when I think about it now that I am the age that I am, it hadn't been that long ago. Actually, there hadn't been that many years prior to when it was like that. And my dad is talking about how it was when he grew up in the segregated South, and it brought tears in my eyes. And my dad was like, oh no, you know, we were okay. But to me it sounded horrible. And I said to my dad, how could you have white friends? Because my dad had white friends. And he said, well, all white people aren't bad. He said, there are white people who risk their lives during the movement to, you know, there are white people who are in the front lines and risk their lives. And there are black people who did nothing. So to him, he's like, all white people are guilty until proven innocent, right? But I don't think all white people are bad. You know what I'm saying? He's going to look at them a little sideways till he knows for real what kind of white person this is. But, you know, so, and for me, I'm like that too. Like, I don't think just because somebody's black, that means they're your ally. I definitely don't think that, okay? But, my dad's white friends, they were the type to stand up. And the white people I grew up around, they were the type that they would call a white person out. They wouldn't be fighting to use the N-word. And if they heard somebody using a white person using it, they definitely would call them out. Okay? And so that's the same thing that I would expect from, you know, if I'm friends with, you know, Caribbeans, Africans, you Caribbean and you my friend, and you hear your people talking shit about black Americans and you don't check them? No. Because you're living in this country, okay, Turtle Island, United States of America. You're benefiting off of our struggle. And I'd be damned if you come here and disrespect it or allow your people to disrespect it and don't call them out. Like, that's not going to fly with me. And so but the conversation, listening to this guy speak, it was a little annoying because, again, it's coming from a Caribbean person in New York City, arguing on behalf of black Americans. When black American culture is not strong in New York City, okay? Black Americans aren't the dominant ones in New York City, okay? Black Americans live all throughout the 50 states, okay? So how can a Caribbean person from New York speak for black Americans? And again, I talked about this in the last video. It's the we thing. No, it's not we. Because you just got here. Your family, you either, you know, maybe you're first generation. So you weren't here fighting these battles. You weren't not just fighting these battles, you weren't here experiencing this. So you don't get to speak for the we. It's not we. Okay? And so now I'm starting to really understand, you know, why Tariq Nasheed had the need to start this term, foundational black Americans. And it's not to say that we shouldn't be allies or that we don't have similarities, you know, but it's like too many people are trying to jump into the conversation and speak for us, or maybe take things that are meant for us. Like if somebody has a scholarship for black Americans And now you have people whose parents are born in Senegal, and parents born in Ghana, and parents born in Nigeria, and parents born in Jamaica, all taking this when it wasn't meant for you. It was meant for the people who've been here for generations. If I move to Haiti right now and have kids, technically my kids will be Haitian. But they're not the same kind of Haitian as the people who are born to Haitian parents and Haitian grandparents who've been there, who are really immersed in the culture. Just because you move someplace and drop a baby, technically on paper you're that, but no, you know what I'm saying? There's more to just being born someplace to make you that. And I'm never the kind of person who feels like other people can't join in a struggle. Like, I'm not saying that Caribbeans or Africans or even white people can't join in the struggle for helping Black Americans, you know, get what is rightfully ours. Okay? I'm not saying that either. But I'm saying that you can't be acting like the spokesperson, being here and being there, okay, and you really aren't the leader of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can fall in line, but I'm just saying, I just felt like a lot of people, I don't know what it is with people when it's like, when Spanish comes into play, people don't understand. Like, okay, first of all, people have a problem understanding ethnicity and nationality. If somebody says they're Haitian, that doesn't mean that they're Black. There are white Haitians. I've met people who are white as shit and they're Haitian. You know why? Because Haiti was colonized by the French, and some of them stayed. Not a lot, but some did. There are also people of other ethnic groups. I have this one Haitian friend, I don't know where his bloodline is from, but he's not African, he ain't indigenous. He's from somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? So, like, just because someone says they're Jamaican doesn't mean they're Black. You have Chinese Jamaicans. You have Japanese Jamaicans. You have Chinese Trinidadians. So East Indian Trinidadians. So if somebody says a Trinidadian, you can't just automatically put them in the Black category. They could be East Indian. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to Spanish speaking people want to throw them all in the, oh, they're all Black. No, they're not. Or Blacks and Latinos. What does that mean? Do you mean Americans and Latinos? Because there are Black Latinos. So what are you speaking about? So when people just use the term Black, like, oh, only Black people can say it, now you have Black people from other from other countries who feel like, well, I'm Black, I can say it. Well, my mother is Black, my grandmother is Black, I can say it, but they're from someplace else. You're not a Black American. So it's tricky. That's why I say Black American. I don't just say Black, because all Black people aren't American. So I don't use Black as synonymous as Black for Black American. I'll say a Black Cuban, a Black Dominican, a Black Haitian, a Black Brazilian, a Black Colombian, a Black Peruvian, a Black Costa Rican. Because there are Black people in all those places, but everybody in all those places ain't Black. Just like everybody in America ain't Black. We got Black Americans. Everybody in America is not Black. There's a difference between white Americans and Black Americans. There's a difference between white Dominicans and Black Dominicans and mestizos and all that. And to understand it, like how they see culture, I mean, how they see race is different. Like in America, it's just Black and white. In those countries, they got the negra, morena, mestiza, blanca. Like they have all these different categories and hierarchies of how they do shit. But again, I just keep seeing Caribbean people, Polish Haitians, and I keep seeing Caribbean people trying to speak, from New York in particular. And people have to understand New York is a different beast. And if you're from someplace outside New York, please feel free to leave comments on how you feel about hearing people from other countries use the N-word, okay? Whether they be Spanish speaking, not Spanish speaking, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, you know, Africans. How do you feel about it? How do people feel about it where you're from? Because I keep hearing this New York perspective. And then I keep seeing Hispanics, especially Dominicans and Puerto Ricans in New York, talking about, I grew up around Black people in the Bronx. I grew up around Black people in Queens, and nobody ever said anything to me, and blah, 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 blah. So if I go move to a certain part of DR, and I start, you know, calling people using a derogatory name, and I'm just in this one little bubble, in this one little neighborhood, and a whole bunch of other people in that country are telling me that it's offensive, I'm going to say, well, the people that I grew up around in this little neighborhood, they never checked me on it. Maybe it's because they were just cool with you. But like that, I mean, I have a problem with that. I do have a problem with that. So I just had to add that on. And I must say, I don't have love for, I have a lot of African friends. I have a lot of Caribbean friends, okay? I have a deep love for Haitians, okay? And I know about the, the Haitians, the intertwined history with us. I know about Haitian soldiers fighting in our wars, the Revolutionary War, Civil War, and all that, okay? Oh, shoot. I know all about that. I know that we have an intertwined history. But still, I just think that, cultures need to be respected. People's history need to be respected. And the N-word is such an ugly word. I've said it many times that I blame the rappers, for making it so popular. I get so sick of hearing that word every day, all day. But I definitely don't want to hear it from somebody from another land. And if I say, I just don't. So anyhow, what are your thoughts on this? Feel free to post them. And I'm going to post a little bit. I think this guy is very interesting that I found on YouTube that was talking about this. And if you look at his, the comments below the video, you can see it. But this is something that I've just been bothered by for a long time. And today was the day I speak on it. If you didn't see the first video, feel free to watch it. I've done other videos on this topic. And to the Black Americans, we need to do better because the whole world copies us. The whole world. I'm looking at rappers, British rappers, they're using it. Some of them are like so light, bright, and damn near white. I don't know what they are. And they're like, and they just feel so comfortable. The better people feel so comfortable saying that. Even when they're checked, is a problem. And there are white people like that too now. So Black Americans are responsible for causing this by saying it every 3 seconds, 100 times in every song. I would way rather have people twerking. I'd rather have that influence because twerking is healing. It makes you feel better, trust me. It might stop some fights from happening, okay? The person who's twerking, if they want to go hit somebody, they might not do it. The person who's watching it, if they wanted to go hit somebody, they may not do it, okay? Twerking spreads love. I would way rather have that influence on the masses than hearing them say nigga, 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 nigga all day long. It's just so ignorant and dumb. And for all the rappers who's supposed to be lyricists, how can you not think of another word to say? Your lyrical skills suck. You guys all use the same word so much in every single song all day long. Y'all can't think of another word? I mean, one of the rules about good writing is not to keep repeating the same word. Get lyricism. So you guys are, come on. All this ignorant shit. It's ridiculous. Okay? But I'm done with this conversation. Feel free to leave your comments. Follow me on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram. And I'll see you guys later. Okay? Bye.